The Rise and Fall of Sparta. Sparta, a name that evokes images of unbeatable warriors and unbreakable military might. Their legendary prowess made them invincible on the battlefield. Yet, even the mightiest empires have origins and endings. How did this formidable city-state rise to power, and what led to its eventual downfall? According to Greek mythology, the name Sparta came from Lacedaemon, who is considered its founder. Lacedaemon was the son of a woman named Thyegete and the Greek god Zeus. The story goes that Lacedaemon married Sparta, the daughter of Eurotas, and this is where the city's name originated. The Spartans were divided into two groups. The Spartiates were full citizens, while the Perikoi were not full citizens but could move around freely. Most Spartiates became soldiers, especially if they were male, while the Perikoi were fishermen, manufacturers, sailors, and other essential workers in society. But there was a third class of people in Spartan society, the Helots. The Helots were the people who did the heavy labor in Sparta. They didn't have the freedom that the Perikoi had, and most of them were assigned to cultivate Spartan lands. In short, Sparta's economy depended on the labor of the Perikoi and the Helots. While claiming to protect them, the Spartiate warriors kept them under strict military control, forcing them to work without freedom. As I mentioned earlier, Sparta was best known for its excellence in warfare. This skill was honed through the Agoge system. The Agoge system was a set of educational and military training programs in Sparta that all male Spartans were required to join. The goal of this system was to instill in Spartan soldiers the belief that the most important thing in their lives was loyalty to Sparta. This loyalty was taught to be more valuable than money, power, and even family. After male babies were born, they were immediately handed over to Spartan elders for inspection. The elders examined the babies for any physical defects to decide if they were fit to undergo the Agoge system. If the elders found any defects, they would abandon the baby on a mountaintop, ensuring it would not survive. Some stories even claim that they didn't just abandon the infants, but threw them from the peak of Mount Taygetus. However, according to recent research, there's a good chance that these are just myths, and the Spartans still cared for their male children even if they couldn't become soldiers. Which version do you think is true? Spartan military training kicked off at age 7. The kids were separated from their parents and moved into military camps, where they faced tough physical training to be soldiers. These kids would train for a decade until they turned 18 and became official members of the Spartan army. Once you became a full-fledged Spartan soldier or hoplite, you'd wear the famous uniform of the Spartan army. They wore a red cloak called a phoenicus and had bronze armor on their feet and arms. All of them carried a large circular bronze and leather shield called a hoplon. They used this to defend against enemy attacks. The Spartans used a wooden spear with a sharp bronze tip that was 6.5 to 10 feet long. They rested the spear on their shoulder, which let them hide behind their hoplon shield while attacking their enemies. If a soldier dropped his spear in battle, he had a short sword called a siphus as a backup. There's no doubt that the Spartan army was one of the bravest and most skilled fighting forces in history. They showed this repeatedly in every war, especially during the Battle of Thermopylae. In 480 BC, Xerxes and his Persian army invaded Greece. He did this to continue the plan of his ancestor Darius I. The Spartans faced overwhelming odds from the beginning, with their small force vastly outnumbered by the massive Persian army. Their force consisted of only 7,000 soldiers, while the Persians had between 180,000 and 200,000 troops. According to the historian Herodotus, the Persian force may have numbered in the millions, although many modern historians doubt this claim. For the Persians to invade Sparta, they had to pass through a narrow passage called Thermopylae. The Spartans used this to their advantage, with 300 of their soldiers blocking thousands of Persians at this passage. Here, the Spartans showed off their famous phalanx formation. This battle tactic was simple, but effective. Soldiers stood side by side, shields locked together, creating a solid wall of bronze. The phalanx consisted of 8 to 12 rows of soldiers, creating a formidable wall of shields and spears. Not only was this defense tough to break, but the Spartans' long spears also allowed them to strike at the Persians from behind their shield wall. This strategy worked even better because the Persians only had short swords, forcing them to get close to the phalanx formation. Under King Leonidas' leadership, the Persians couldn't break through the passage, even when they sent in their elite troops, the Immortals. Unfortunately, one Spartan betrayed the group and told Xerxes about a path behind Thermopylae. Xerxes used this information to surround King Leonidas' force. Outnumbered and surrounded, the Spartans stood their ground, fighting bravely until every last warrior fell. Though they lost, this battle had a huge impact on the war, because Leonidas' small force managed to hold off thousands of Persians at the Thermopylae Pass for 3 days. Sparta gained valuable time to plan and prepare defenses against the Persians. King Leonidas' sacrifice is the reason why, in the end, the Persians failed to conquer Sparta, which remained a free city-state. In 431 BC, the Peloponnesian War broke out between Sparta and Athens. You might think the war would be easy for the Spartans, given their superior military force, but that's not how it played out. Sure, with their big shields and tall spears, the Spartans crushed the Athenians on land, but the battle wasn't just fought on land. Athens had a powerful navy, and that's where they beat Sparta. They had strong walls protecting their city, and while the Spartans focused on offense with their skilled soldiers, Athens concentrated on defense. The Peloponnesian War dragged on for 27 years, with both sides taking heavy losses. Finally, in 404 BC, Sparta finally defeated Athens. After the Peloponnesian War, Sparta became the most powerful city-state in Greece and expanded its territory. Their victory seemed like a good thing, but it brought more problems than benefits. First, the long war had killed many Spartan warriors, which left their once mighty army severely weakened. But instead of resting and rebuilding their troop, Sparta kept jumping into more wars. After their victory, they tightened control over their allies, a move that sparked widespread resentment. The harsh Spartan rule alienated many former allies, who then rebelled against their oppressive control. This included the Helots. As Sparta's territory grew, they struggled to manage their Helots, who eventually became their enemies. After these conflicts, Sparta's army shrank even more. Data shows that from a population of 9,000 before the Peloponnesian War, it dropped to just 4,000. So even though they were the strongest city-state in Greece and led the Peloponnesian League, they became a minority in their own territory. Also, Spartan leaders' attitudes changed after the Peloponnesian War. As they got richer, leaders focused more on money and how to increase their personal wealth. The strong sense of loyalty to Sparta, once upheld by its past leaders, began to fade. This created a huge wealth gap among Sparta's citizens. To summarize, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. This also affected their ability to grow their army, which was the most important thing for Spartans. A crucial part of the Agoge required trainees to buy their own armor. So now that many were poor, how could those who couldn't afford their own armor pass to the Agoge? Even when Sparta changed this rule, many still couldn't join their military force because the Agoge was so brutal. So when they got desperate to strengthen and increase their forces, they started recruiting people who didn't have to go through the Agoge system training. This was another factor that led to their downfall. In 375 BC, Sparta faced off against Thebes, another Greek city-state. Sparta had dominated Thebes for years, but Thebes eventually gained strength and declared independence. The Spartans couldn't accept this, so they went to war. Cleombrotus led the Spartan force of 10,000 warriors and 1,000 cavalry, while Epaminondas commanded the Thebans with 7,000 warriors and 700 cavalry. At first, Sparta was confident because of their famous fighting strength, but the Thebans had a surprise in store for them. First, Cleombrotus failed to realize that the Spartan warriors he brought to this war were now different. Most of his men weren't Spartan warriors who had gone through the Agoge. In fact, out of his 10,000 hoplites, only 700 were true Spartan warriors. Even though the others could fight, A full force of genuine Spartan warriors would have been much stronger. There was also a problem with his cavalry. Despite outnumbering the Thebans, most of them were Helots recruited by Cleombrotus, so they had no loyalty to Sparta. Epaminondas, the Theban leader, was a brilliant military strategist. He had won many battles and wasn't intimidated by the Spartans. He was confident he could defeat Sparta since he knew exactly what they would do, use their famous phalanx formation. At the start of the battle, the Spartans immediately showed their phalanx formation. Sparta's phalanx had 12 rows and wings on both sides. Epaminondas knew that the right side of the phalanx was much more protected than the left, so he concentrated more of his forces on the left side of the battle and placed his cavalry there as well. When the battle began, the Thebans successfully smashed through the weaker left side of Sparta's phalanx. This created an opening for their cavalry to charge in and attack from behind. The Theban soldiers quickly followed their cavalry, and soon the Spartans were surrounded. Further, Epaminondas ordered his troops to attack from the left to split the Spartan force. When Sparta tried to adjust their position in the battle, Epaminondas sent in his best soldiers, an elite group of 150 fighters called the Sacred Band. Amid the chaos of battle, the Thebans killed Cleombrotus. Without their leader, the Spartans fell back and eventually conceded defeat. This marked Sparta's first loss in a major battle in many years. This loss destroyed Sparta's reputation for being unbeatable, proving to the world that the once mighty warriors could be defeated. After his victory, Epaminondas didn't conquer the people of Sparta. Instead, he freed the Helots. The weakened Spartans faced another blow when the Helots seized the opportunity to revolt once more. In the following years, Sparta grew weaker, especially as its population declined further. The situation worsened when Nabis, the last ruler of the city, as an independent city-state, took power. Nabis was completely different from Sparta's former leaders. His sole ambition was personal wealth, with no interest in restoring Sparta's former power. After losing the Laconian War in 195 BC, Sparta lost its freedom for good and slowly vanished from history. Sparta, one of the most renowned city-states of its time, wealthy, disciplined, and skilled in warfare. Their downfall serves as a reminder that no matter how powerful you are, in this life, nothing lasts forever.